computer. Beautiful. All right. So, welcome everyone to this week's class, which this week is going to be about the perception of reality. I know that we have Sterling with us for the first time. Welcome. We have a few others that will probably join us before we kind of get underway. We are going to do a recap of last week of what we discussed. I know that all of us come in with a different experience level on the subject of Kabbalah. Don't worry. We have time for questions. We have time for to kind of get through all the material. So just so you know just how the class is going to go this week, we got a lot of clips. We got a lot we're going to discuss. We have Q&A sessions, 2 of them, okay? Because I saw last week that you guys have a lot of questions, okay? But normally what ends up happening is classes 1, 2, and 3, maybe even class 4, all the questions that you had from the past, from all the things that you guys have been studying across all the ages, these are questions that you have, and all those surface. But after we get past all those things, you see that then all the questions are derived strictly and mostly from the material that we cover. And so we're able to kind of go at a little different pace and penetrate a little bit more into this material. So I'm not saying don't provide those questions. Please do, because it makes the class much more rounded, gets everything out of the way. Also, if people, I'm sure if you have this question, others also have the question. So please ask those questions. And that's why we have 2 Q&A sessions today for that. And this was so prominent that we saw even in our virtual space that we had to do full classes, just Q&A sessions, like by class 3 or 4 in the virtual space. We would book 2 hours, online, virtual, hey, connect, and we'll just answer everything you've got. And you'll see that even then we have to sometimes add another session, and it's natural. So how's the air? You guys feeling okay? Is it a little hot?
No.
It's cold?
You're fine.
You're fine? Coffee, water? What do you want? Water? You sure?
I'll be rushing back to the restaurant.
All right, because we were about to get going, so I want to make sure. Okay, also I have another little gift for you guys. Our teacher, Rob Michael Lightman, recorded a little clip for all the campus students. What's neat is that we do these campuses regularly, and so it's an organization. He's aware that we're doing it. And so he recorded a little song for you guys to kind of welcome you to the campus. So I have that clip, and I'll show it to you. And then we'll do a recap of last week.
Dear students, I am very, very happy that we are launching new Kabbalah campus courses in many places in North America. The people who come to study are those who want to know about the essence of life, the secret of life, how to run life, how to know the nature of the world we're living in. I'm happy that in a few months we'll be able to discuss the essence of the universe and the secrets of life, how to actually conduct our life well, knowing the forces that govern us, and how to activate these forces. I'm happy that another part of humanity, you, campus students, will know how to properly look at life and be such human beings that have a broad and healthy view on the world, knowing how it evolves. In short, it'll make you great. I'll be delighted to help you on this path. I hope to be seeing you soon in a convention that we will hold in North America. And I wish you all the best. In your personal lives too, you'll see how you can improve in the workplace, in the family, in every aspect. I'm with you. I'm wishing for your success. I'm embracing you. And good luck, friends.
Is he in Israel?
Yeah, he's in Israel. There's a little town. South of or north of Tel Aviv called Petah Tikva, and that's where our center is, our major center. So I sent the video clip. Remember how I told you guys last week that I wanted to show you the full video clip and only like half of it showed up? Well, I sent you guys the full clip. Did anyone get an opportunity to watch it? No. Okay, that's all right. What we'll do is before we do the recap game, let's watch it real fast between us because I wanted you guys to get a history of who B'nai Baruch is. I don't think we kind of covered it like in its full extent. So the last portion of it, you'll see on how the lineage is tied from the Kabbalists and to us. I think it'll be important also for Sterling to see it. So give me 1 minute. I'm going to pull that up, and plus we're waiting also on the other students. So we'll get I'll get it up for you, locked and loaded here.
You look like you could use it.
So you said the hyperlink wasn't working? There we go. Karen, it didn't work for you?
For me, it didn't, no.
The chain of Kabbalists begins with Abraham. In ancient Babylon, 3,500 years ago, the cradle of human civilization. Egoism and hatred erupted and drove people apart. Abraham discovered the method of human connection and unity and began teaching and sharing what would later become the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. The thousands of people who followed his path became the first group of Kabbalists in history. 1,500 years later, cruel wars break out everywhere. In a small cave in northern Israel, Shimon Bar Yochai and his 9 students are writing together the great book of Zohar, a book about eternity and universal love, while outside their cave, the world sinks into darkness and conflict. The book disappears for centuries, waiting for its time to become revealed and shine its light upon the world. Towards the end of the 16th century, Isaac Luria, known as the Holy Ari, appears in our world. He was the one capable of unlocking and adapting the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah to bring its light back to our world. From that moment on, everyone can begin studying the method that can connect our hearts. The 20th century arrives. World War II breaks out, leading 6 million Jews as sheep to the slaughter. It is during this bloody period that Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, known as Baal HaSulam, realizes the final stage of human egoism had begun. Now, the discoveries of Abraham, the secrets hidden in the book of Zohar, and the revelations in the writings of the Ari would be compiled into the science of human connection. We are all connected in a single, wondrous system, like organs of the same body, Baal HaSulam explains repeatedly. All we need is to reveal this system. His eldest son, Rav Baruch Shalom Ashlag, the Rabash, continues to interpret his writings, making them more accessible and more practical, enabling every person to reveal the spiritual world. As human egoism reaches its peak and the wisdom must spread throughout the world, appears the student who would take it to that level, Michael Leitman. He meets the Rabash at the age of 30 and stays by his side for 13 years, becoming his closest friend until his last day. Thus, the Rabash left us with a practical method and a spiritual guide to lead us to our unity. In 1995, about 10 students gather in Michael Leitman's apartment once a week. A year later, they are 40, and then 100. Every year and every month, more and more students are joining the group. In 2002, Michael Leitman is invited to give a series of lectures in North America. In LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and Toronto, the halls are filled to the brim. In 2005, Rav Leitman becomes a member of the World Wisdom Council, and 5,000 people come to see him in Tokyo. The world begins to hear about Kabbalah, Baal HaSulam, and global unity. He spreads the same message at the Arosa Summit, at the Table of Free Voices in Berlin, and wherever people are ready to hear it. In parallel, The students in Israel are making great efforts to launch the first Kabbalah channel on television. Every program is designed for viewers to see, hear, and feel the warmth of unity that connects us. At the same time, all over the world, branches of the Kabbalah Education Center are coming to life. In Italy, China, Russia, Holland, Sweden, Colombia, 62 countries joined Israel with a common desire to elevate humanity into a single whole. In addition to the activities of the B'nai Baruch Kabbalah Education and Research Institute, social movements are initiated to promote unity above differences. On a daily and hourly basis, we broadcast a message of unity through any possible medium. A warm message that enters people's hearts. A message that sooner or later, the entire world will feel. We will continue and complete the work of Abraham, who discovered the law of connection and love and passed it on to us through the lineage of Kabbalists. Today we know for sure that the law of unity, love your friend as yourself, will become the fundamental nature of life, felt within each of us, connecting all of us as one.
All right. So yes, that was the full clip that I wanted you guys to watch from last week that I cut incorrectly. So luckily you were able to see it now. And so again, for Sterling, my name is Juan Rico. I'm part of B'nai Baruch Kabbalah Educational Research Institute. We're devoted to disseminating the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah worldwide, as you can see. We have many activities that we do all the time, and it's huge what we've done. Our websites, our portals are full of all the materials. You can download them. They're available in all the languages. So it's quite the organization. Okay, so let's jump into last week. We're gonna play a little game. So you're gonna see that we're gonna switch it up sometimes. This is called the recap game. Okay, so we're gonna put you in groups because remember, the wisdom of Kabbalah is a practical wisdom. It's the wisdom of connection. Yes, you will have to work together. So let's divide you into you three here and you four over here. And what we're gonna do, you have to work together on this, and you're gonna create a sentence between each other. And you're gonna use the following words in one sentence, if possible. The word creator, creature, the purpose of creation, and why does the creator conceal himself? Okay? So attempt to create a sentence with these four principles within it. Okay? Okay, let's simplify it like this. How about you stay over there and we'll do you three ladies, and then we'll do you four there. And each one helps his friends, so please help Sterling. He wasn't here last week. So look to your friends over here. They'll help you get up to speed. All right, so you have 4 minutes for the assignment. But remember, you must work together, okay? You will be graded on your ability to work together, not on how great the sentence is. So.
Creation was to create a creature
but we have
Yeah.
those four things, only those four.
in one sentence.
In one sentence.
I didn't hear the instructions.
No, I was thinking that the purpose of creation is to enable the creators
To create a creature.
ability to create a creature in order to conceal themselves. Or
Really do it in
conceal
order to
themselves.
fulfill themselves.
What I was thinking was the creator in his bestowal of love to his creatures that he has created in order to elevate humankind.
Yeah, but we need to put in
What?
the great creator conceals himself.
2 more minutes.
Didn't get to that part.
Well,
It's
so
one
go ahead.
sentence.
I mean, there's three of us.
Right.
So go ahead. I
I think we got that from us of creation was for creative to create a creature to bestow on us all, how we say it. However,
This love.
there we go, however, that can be our same thing. However. He conceals himself before us. He conceals himself before us. We need to be the creatures we get.
That's the hard, that last
That's
word,
my thought.
because we don't really know what
You
it is.
know,
We're just beginning.
yeah.
Because we.
It could be a question as well.
Work
Because we
together.
couldn't hold that
What
much
does
light.
everyone else?
There you go, that sounds.
The creative conceals himself to not break our shells, because it's too much light for us.
Don't we have to use all four?
That's true.
Yes, all of them.
That's true.
Oh,
I thought
any, no, you're right.
any or-
Any or all of them.
It's a creature is reviewed through.
However, he concealed himself because the creatures were unable to hold on to light.
What did you have?
If we went directly to creative, we would be able to contain us, we die. We just die. Well, eventually, yes.
One more minute. One more minute.
We'll all write down each sentence, as we just discussed.
I think I remember.
Well, let me write
Okay,
down.
so the purpose of creation. Take short hand.
No, the purpose of creation.
Was for the creative.
I'll put it on here. I mean,
Create a
No,
creature.
but
let's kind of put everyone together and make one.
Well, I mean,
Instead of saying that
It-
one
it's
is
two
two
letters.
Unbounded delight.
oh, okay, so I was just gonna say.
Bestow on
Does
us.
everybody have some creator? The ver.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this one.
All right, 30 more seconds.
I have my own personal beliefs, so that's why I would.
Everything is fine.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever the group decides.
Creatures.
10 more seconds.
So how do you want to, well, everybody else is made.
Let's do rock, paper, scissors between him and I. You guys do rock, paper, scissors, whoever wins. Then you do rock, paper, scissors between that.
You do something.
All right, so let's see. Oh, all right, now we're doing rock, paper, scissors back here.
You are. You are.
Oh, this is great.
Okay, you are.
Rock, paper, scissors. So I won one out of the two.
Okay, so let's, okay, yep, I'll let you guys finish, yep. Boom, okay, he's the winner, so. Okay, so we went, let's talk first, how was the working together portion? So group A, how was the working together? Good? Yeah, it was not bad. I heard a lot of speaking here, not so much speaking here. Were you included? Did you
Yes,
feel
I
included?
started,
Yeah?
yeah.
You started talking? Okay. And over here, I heard total silence for like a long time while each one wrote individually. Then you kind of came together, and then there was competition at the end. It was like, let's compete to see who does something. So what was the competition for?
It wasn't supposed to, but just.
No?
It was just like, well,
So we started as
we're just running out of-
let's work together. And so,
Technically, we worked together because at the end, we kind of came together through the competition.
great. How did everyone feel about this exercise? How was it working with others? Yeah, I'm seeing some of these faces. I'm seeing some.
It's
So,
good because
okay.
it, for the people that are not used to working teams, we have to get used to it. So it's good.
So you're saying, like, speak for yourself, right? Like,
Usually,
yeah.
yes. Usually, I am a very individualistic type of person. So it's good for me to be involved in this type of thing.
Great, great. Anyone else? Any comments? How was it? The exercise? Was it hard? Was it easy? Did it make you think?
It was easy.
It's easy, right? Not that bad. All you had to do was work together. Okay, so how about those sentences? Are we going to hear some sentences? You have 4 sentences back here, from my understanding. So let's see which one. But that's what the competition was for, right? To see who got to, who was the ruler over the others.
I think the rule we were-
Yeah.
I think it's more, we're all movers.
Okay, so let's hear the team A.
The purpose of creation was to create a creature and bestow unbounded delight. However, he conceals himself because the creature could not hold all the light without breaking.
Whoa, what a sentence! Advanced group over here. Okay. All right. So now let's hear from Team B.
A question? Yeah. And reference to that also. Why does why does the creator conceal himself to the purpose of creation in order to see their creator through every creation?
Beautiful. All right. Great job, guys. Good. Okay. So you can return your seats if you like. You can stay wherever you want. Okay. So let's talk about last week. What we discussed. You can see the board, right? Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. So let's start with creator. Okay. So remember, you guys had a lot of definitions from last week. We kind of started our glossary. All right. So let's start at square one. Who can tell me what is the creator? All right. What is the creator, Jose?
Creator is the will to bestow.
Okay, so according to the Kabbalists, the creator is
Thank you, Mayor.
the will to bestow. Okay.
Light, love.
Light, love, goodness, all that good stuff. Light, love. And it really depends on when you're talking about its qualities, right? Because if you talk about the qualities of the creator, then you would say it's love, giving, bestowal. This is the creator. But the Kabbalists tell us that the creator is a primordial force that governs the whole of creation. It operates under one law. The law is giving. It only operates under this law, giving. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, usually it's represented as an arrow, as a downward pointing arrow. But the creator also, even though we call him creator, and sometimes it sounds like it's him, we also sometimes refer to it as her also, like when it's the quality of Binah, let's say, which is one of those 10 sefirot. When we call the quality of Binah, we call it female, she's the bestower. It's okay, it's a universal term for the point that it's giving. It's a force that gives, it bestows, okay? So that's the creator. So now, if the creator is a giver, okay, if it's a giving force, what is the creature?
Taking.
It's a receiving force. It takes, and it takes, and it takes without end. It's a receiver. So the creature is a will to receive. What does it want to receive? A will to receive what?
Light.
Light.
Love.
What else?
Love.
Love. Pleasure. Because light also is pleasure. Because it's the creator wants to give the light, and when we feel the light, we feel it in the form of pleasure. So a will to receive pleasure, which you're absolutely correct. It's the receptacle for the pleasure. So let's say it's like a plus force and like a minus force. And this is how the whole of creation is set up. It's set up with opposites. We have good, we have evil, we have plus and minus. But what is good and what is evil? Good being a bestowing force and evil being a receiving force. There are no evil forces in the world. There is no devils or like imaginary things in the dark or monsters or ghouls, goblins under your bed. The only thing that the Kabbalists tell us that is evil in this world is your egoism, your ability to exploit others endlessly, without end. That's what we should be afraid of. And we see it very prevalently in this world, all over the place. People, this whole system, this whole thing is governed by one law, which is the law of a will to receive pleasure for me. Okay? All right, and so then they tell us, the Kabbalah tells us that there's a thought of creation, a purpose of creation. So what was the thought of creation? What was the purpose of this whole thing? Does anyone know?
Seek the creator.
To seek creator, correct. That's from the side of the creature, but the creator, when he started this whole process, why did he do it? Why did he create something?
To reveal himself in this life.
Correct. So the creator,
Okay.
and I'll add to it, he created a creature in order to fill him with unbounded delight and pleasure. That's the purpose of creation. So the purpose of creation was to create a creature. So create a creature and fill him with unbounded delight and pleasure, which means Creator wants you to enjoy. He wants you to have a good life. He wants you to discover Him, to discover love and feel the goodness and everything that exists. Okay? And then we find ourselves that there's an issue. The issue is that there very well may be a creator, but we don't see him and we don't perceive him, and no one does. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason why we do not perceive the creator. Can anyone tell me why we don't perceive the creator?
Because we're limited by sensorial, by our senses while we're here. Our density, it's like putting us in a box in which we can only perceive through sight, hear, taste, touch.
You're coming into today's lesson. You'll be a little less advanced. Go back to last week. But you're correct in the sense of this. Yeah. Okay. In the sense of this, that there's a need for concealment because of this. When we were created, we were all one with Creator. We were all in the state of Ein Sof, without end. We were in the Garden of Eden. Creator was giving and giving and giving and giving to us. Okay. Of course, we're not talking about physical things. Anything in the wisdom of Kabbalah, when we mention Garden of Eden, or this or that. We're not talking about a physical place where there was trees and there was a nice water and the fish were jumping and everything was beautiful. We're talking about a sensation, a spiritual feeling of us being completely interconnected, completely one with Creator in this state. This state is also called the state of Adam Arishon, the first man. The first man, Adam Arishon. We were in an interconnected state. Everyone, all the pieces, it was one soul. Everyone together, interconnected. But then there came a point where there was a shattering. And there was a shattering. Why? Because Creator wanted to not have us be just these kind of children that just received completely from Him without any knowing that there is a Creator. He wanted us to know that it was Him who's the giver. So as a result of this, He implemented something into the system, which is precisely, later we'll find out that what it really is called, but it's for now it's something called egoism. It's opposite to Him. So as a result of this, He began to separate Himself from us, all the way down to through a series of 5 worlds. Okay, so from 5 worlds, He separated us from Him. But remember, this isn't worlds like Pluto and Mars and maybe like the world of Avatar or like J.R.R. Tolkien, like I'm in like Middle Earth. What we're discussing is concealment from the word Che'elem in Hebrew, which means to hide something or to separate, meaning that it's more and more levels of concealment. So the Creator is concealed 100% from the Creator. And we descended into a place called this world, where there is 100% no visibility of Creator. We see and perceive Him 0%, and as we ascend, we can perceive Him, let's say 1% or 2%. But now we're in this place where nobody sees Creator. He's not here. Okay, according to our senses, he's not under a rock, he's not up in the clouds. We're not going to enter the subject of faith. We can discuss that in class 3 or 4 when we enter into those subjects. But for now, we must understand that we live in a world absent of creator. All we see is egoism. Okay, so then there was these spiritual worlds that were created along the path as we descended. We detailed the name of the worlds last week. They're the worlds of Adam Kadmon. I'll abbreviate Adam Kadmon, Ak, Beriah, yeah, Atzilut, right? There we go. Help me out. Atzilut, Beriah, Yetzirah,
That's for the creation, like the creation of the physical stuff, right?
Asiya. Later in semester 2, we go into each world and what are the qualities of each world. But for now, all you got to know is that the higher the world is closer to creator, the lower the world is further away from creator. Up until we're totally not even in level 1. We're like in level 0. We don't see creator, okay? And if you're already in the world of Asiya, then you're already perceiving creator to a certain extent, okay? And these are the 5 worlds that were created. And again, when we say spiritual worlds, we're not talking about places or physical locations. We're talking about internal perceptions of and sensations of me now feeling the creator. But again, we're not talking about the sky opening up and there's a trumpet that sounds and the angels all flutter and it's like in this sense, but rather I acquire his qualities. Okay, what are his qualities? What is creator? Creator is love, bestowal, giving. So I begin to acquire his qualities. And today we're going to discuss more about what is that acquisition of his qualities and how does it affect my perception. Okay, but for now we need to know that a spiritual world is when I advance through them, I begin to perceive more creator. And as I descend from them, I don't perceive creator anymore. And that's how the world's developed as a result of us descending. And then there's a process of ascending from above downwards and an ascent from below upwards, where now we go up through the worlds and we return back to this state of Ein Sof. But the difference now is that we will return to an interconnected one human state, completely interconnected. But the difference is now that we know that there's a creator, we know he's the giver, and we know where the pleasure is coming from. And we consciously want to ascend the ladder of degrees to reveal him and to discover him more. And that's the complete of stage 1, where we were completely kind of unconsciously receiving from creator to a state of this world where we're completely separated from creator. And then the development of the desires throughout this world, if you remember last week, and now how we want to return to creator. This is where we're at. And we find ourselves now at this point, right at the threshold of beginning that process of returning to creator. And this is the recap from last week. So what questions do you have or have arisen, both from what we just talked about and the reading materials or the blog or the video that we sent out during for the preparation materials? Yeah, I mean, do your homework.
That's
Any questions? Jose, you had your hand up.
Yeah, last time you mentioned something the wife and you mentioned that there's no creator because you create a creator. So so the whole process, if it's not creator, then who am I?
Who are you? You're some guy who's in some Kabbalah class, who has some job, who has some kids, who lived some life.
But that's my appearance. I cannot identify with that because this cannot disappear.
The concept of creator is one that the Kabbalists take very seriously in the sense of this, that no one can really describe creator himself, because the question always arises, which I'm surprised no one has asked until now, so I'll propose the question. Well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Where did creator come from? Who created creator? Where was this force? What is creator really? Because the Kabbalists up until now in our classes really have just said that creator is a force of love and giving that sustains this world. They'd say it's not a person, that he doesn't have a personality, he doesn't have physical human traits, but rather he's just a giving force. And then they're saying, well, what happened prior to the creation? What occurred before that? And there's something called atzmuto. Atzmuto. The concept of atzmuto is something that we do not discuss, meaning no one has attained it. And later today we're going to discuss precisely, there's a rule in Kabbalah. My man.
I'd like to know, right?
Where's your book?
Oh, man, I just
It's okay. Have a seat. Don't worry about it. Let me get you something to write down. We're still in the recap, so. And so up until now, with your senses, you cannot say that there is a creator without using some sort of faith, where you believe that it is so. Meaning that at the moment, your faith is below your reason, meaning that your reason would tell you with your mind, I perceive no creator. And so you require something else in order to tell you that yes, there is a creator, because right now, he does not exist. Because any logical, sane person who isn't in a loony bin would tell you there is no creator, okay? Unless you begin acquiring something that's non-tangible, something that's non-physical, which is like faith or belief or something of that sort. So since we're scientists, we say he doesn't exist. We must create him. We must discover him. We must attain him, in the sense that they tell me that there is this force that governs, yet I have no proof of it. So if I perform scientific experiments in the sense of, and today we're going to describe precisely how to do this, using a form called equivalence of form, or a concept called equivalence of form, then you can discover that he is there. So let's leave this concept of creator, because later we're going to give him another name. We're going to call him Boré. Okay, so let's hold off for creator in a minute. In about 30-40 minutes, we'll discuss creator and how the Kabbalists look at how one can attain this force of creator.
Okay. So I have this question.
Good, and you wrote them down. Let's all take this as an example. Everyone be like, huh?
Okay, no. So the creator created a creature. Is that only human, or is that everything?
It encompasses the whole of creation,
Okay.
which we haven't discussed it yet, but I'll tell you briefly. It covers the still degree, which is the inanimate degree. It covers the vegetative. It covers the animal degree, the animate degree, and it covers the human degree. All of this is within the creation.
Okay, so it's like the pan-theorists, where they believe everything has some level of consciousness.
I'm not familiar with that theory, but the Kabbalists tell us that everything that's encapsulated within the creation is all the rocks, all the planets, all the solar system, everything that we perceive that's external from us, including all the vegetative state within our world that we're familiar with, all the way from the bacteria to the trees, and then also the animate, all the animals, and included in the animate degree are humans, us, who, because it says the human degree, you already think that you're already on that degree. But unfortunately, we are like very sophisticated animals, so much so that recently, man, you see in the news that like all this stuff on sexual harassment and stuff is coming out. All these things are revealing, and you figure that we're like a very advanced human race, that by now we would not let our like animal like instincts like come, and like we're like baboons. You come, if you want something, you just come, you take it, and it's like, and this is how we operate. So you see that we're really still, the Kabbalists tell us, we're on that animal degree, and then we'll rise to that human degree, which encapsulates kind of the understanding of all of this like as one creation.
Okay, great. So you mentioned just now that you said the Creator wanted us to know He created us.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that ego right there?
Interesting, right? He wants us to discover Him. He wants us to know that He's there. And I'm saying it in a way that almost gives Him like a face, like a personality, something like this. And the reason why it's designed like this is because, and the Kabbalists tell us, it's because of the way that creation was created. Meaning that if he didn't want us to, then we would have stayed in this state. And we would have just completely been one with him, and there would have been kind of no purpose of it. But then as a result of the shattering, the descent, and the fact that now the Kabbalists who have ascended and who have seen what they've, from after the reaching all 125 degrees, what they've formalized is the fact that the Creator wanted us to become into adhesion with him, meaning that he made this whole process undergo, and in order for us to know that there is a giving force, and that and how we can properly work with it.
But if we were, this is always my problem with all the Creator in whatever way you want to describe it. Why I don't understand the separation. I still don't understand that he separated us because he wanted us to know him. If we were part of him, that doesn't make sense to me. Or if we were, and we are Creator also, I still don't. And to add on to that, why 5 worlds and why 125 degrees?
Yeah, the 5 worlds, and I'll tell you about the rest.
Okay.
Do you have children?
Stepchildren.
But you've never had your own children?
Right.
Okay. So who has had children? You have children. You have children. No, I mean women. So how bad did you want to meet that baby that was inside of you? How bad did you?
Very bad.
How bad did you want that baby
Very
to come
bad.
out? How bad did you want to look in its eyes? How bad did you want it to
From
know
every second since I knew
it was inside of you? And how bad did you want it to look at you and to smile at you and to know that you're the giver? This is like the closest kind of example that we can
That's a good
see
example.
in nature.
But see, I purposely chose not to have children. I don't have that.
It's okay. That's fine.
So
It's
if
not.
you're using that as your reason
No.
for creation, then
It's an example. It's the
Okay.
closest thing. Meaning that, why do we say this? Because again, we describe this state as kind of like the fetus within the womb, where it's receiving completely from the mother, and it doesn't know that there is a mother. It's just in a state of complete reception and full giving full receiving from an outer force. And so at this stage right here, there's no understanding that there is a creator. And that's kind of, the Kabbalists use it as a way to, they describe it, the fact that there's a fetus inside of a womb, okay? And so they use that to describe it, kind of that circumstance. The fact that you chose to have children or not, it's regardless, because but why we have these things in this world, and the fact that even Kabbalists tell us, get married, have children, is because we now have something that we can use as a feeling stick, that now we can use these things to kind of describe sensations that are similar to what we would kind of feel in the upper world. Let's put it like that. Which is why it's kind of a requirement, not for women to have children or anything like this, but at least for the men, to get a wife, to have kids. You need to experience all the aspects of what this human life has. Get a job, go out and work, deal with people, do everything that's why the Kabbalists don't tell us to restrict anything, but rather do everything.
why would it only be a requirement for men though? Because if you're saying men need to get married and have children, why wouldn't women have that same requirement then?
Because they have wives, and then the wife will have the children. And then because in essence it becomes much more complicated, like with a woman. No one can enter a world of a woman, and you'll see, meaning that I can't come and tell you have children or not have children. Regardless, if you do or you don't, it's nothing. And you'll believe me, you can achieve all these degrees without experiencing birth or something inside of you. Believe me, you can do all of it without it. But it's just an easier kind of sensory feeling inside of you to attribute it to this quality that we're describing. And back to why there's 5 worlds and 5 everything else. So there's 5 worlds. Within each world is 5 partsufim. What's a partsufim? A spiritual vessel. Okay? And within each partsufim, there's 5 sefirot. 5 times 5 times 5 equals 125 degrees. And we'll draw them all out for you in semester 2. Why 5 and not 10? We'll get into all that.
I mean, some places the numbers make have a.
Six of them get collapsed into one, and we go like this. So it's, and all guys, again, what is all this, and what are we talking about here? All this that I just drew out, that I just spoke about, all these are more and more degrees of love, more and more feelings of love, more and more revelation of Creator. That's it. That's all the spiritual world is more and more discovery of this upper force. Okay? And then later, when you get to these places, then you can see for yourself, is it this way? Is it what the Kabbalist said? Is it not what the Kabbalist said? And we'll, in a little while, in 20 minutes, we'll talk about the law of that Kabbalists live by. More questions? One more, and then we'll keep going. Maybe two more.
I do.
I had a
It's
question after that.
it's more like an observation about why the detachment, the way I see it, that giving and receiving dance is what allows eternity. And for some reason, there is a reason why that Atmutol, why we don't even talk about it, because our minds wouldn't even, it'll be too overwhelming. We can't compute that that type of information. We can only reach a tiny bit of why. But the way I see it is just, that dance, like give me, take, give me and take, and give and take, is what allows expansion, is what allows the eternity. And finally, why we cannot have, we can choose not to have children, for what I know, and I don't know if you would agree.
Soon you'll join me up here to teach.
Our spiritual complexion makes us, what Juan just said, attain everything without even having to have a partner. But for men, the way they think, the way they feel, they need to go through all those processes in order to.
Once. I'll ask another question. You had kids. You got one son. The moment the baby came out, and be honest.
Long story, man.
But wait. Wait. The moment the baby came out, did you love it?
We're being completely honest here. I mean, I didn't think he was mine. I can't say
Okay,
that.
so the answer is no. Who else has children? You have children?
I have said it, but I wasn't.
Do you have children? It took me, look, and this is and it's not just because I want to make a point or something. Honestly, you see with men, that it's a natural thing. The baby comes out, and the mother immediately loves it. It's like, oh my God, this, you don't know how immediately, like, she's attached to this baby, right? With the male force, totally different. It takes about 3 months or so. Like, you're just, like, you feel so disconnected from it. It's like a piece of meat or something. You don't know how to relate to it. It's just making noise. Like, how do I hold it? I might break it, And this is already I have 3, and with a third one.
I think what women develop is just a sense of protection. But love.
Yeah, there are women that don't
that's
have
fine.
that immediate feeling.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine.
Yeah.
The point being is that we see that, and we speak in generalities, right? And we see in generality with men is that it takes us longer to acquire these things. That's why men generally, I'm telling you, the ladies, hands down in the class, will be much more advanced than the guys. You guys will get it right away. The men, it'll take us a little bit longer. We'll need a little bit more chewing on it. What can you do with us? Why? Because you ladies are from the degree of Malchut. You're like from this world. You yourself make life and create life. You're closer to Creator. So you already feel this deeper inside of you and closer. With us, we're a little bit more pulled away from it. It'll take us longer, which is not a problem because we're all in the same kindergarten. So just have mercy on us and let us and help us also learn too. Even though you guys are very advanced.
Just gotta ask this. I don't know if this is advanced or if this is early on in the process, but what I see when I think of the 5 worlds are the equivalent to self and ego and desires of my own ego dying, not in the literal sense of suicide, but I have to basically kill myself in order to have that experience of the Creator.
Spoken wisely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, spoken wisely. This is exactly the process we're undergoing. And the wisdom of Kabbalah does that. Less of me, less of my own ideas and my own thoughts, and more of the actual ideas and the actual thought. This process is both one of deprogramming everything that was given to me throughout my entire life and reprogramming it with correct balances, checks, and measures to be understood that yes, this is the accurate information that is entering me And in the end, what am I getting rid of when I'm getting rid of my ego? I'm getting rid of my opinion. I'm getting rid of myself, the fact that I think it's this way and I hold these ideas. Later, you'll see there's much more discussion that we've covered in third and fourth semester about how one lowers himself, his head, you know, and then, oh, how does the baby come out of the womb with his head down? So we also need to lower our heads and accept the information that's presented, and you'll see that we'll all be born. So, okay, let's continue. I have another clip, and then we'll jump into the perception of reality. Okay, so now, another game. Are you ready? This is very important. You see these girls? They're wearing black and white shirts, okay? And they have a basketball between them. And there will be a winner, okay? So make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do, okay? You're going to get a special prize. They have a basketball, and they're going to be bouncing it between them, okay? So you must count how many times the girls pass the ball with the black shirts, okay? Black shirts, not the white shirts. Don't get confused now, all right? They're there to confuse you. Black shirts. How many times they pass the ball between them, okay? I'm telling you, folks, this is everything. You're going to get a heck of a prize. So watch it. Make sure that you count with detail, okay? And they're going to, I'm telling you, they're going to throw some curveballs at you. So be aware. Watch the balls and count the black balls, okay? Here we go.
Does it count if
How many times the black shirts pass the ball?
Between each other.
Yeah, so black shirt, boom, boom, passes it to black shirt, 1. Passes it back, 2, 3, 4, okay?
What if a black shirt passes it to a white shirt?
It won't happen. All right? Here we go. Black shirts only, all right? Focus, folks. I'm telling you.
black to black?
Black to black. White will pass to white, black to black. Don't be confused, but I'm telling you, focus, 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 really tightly. Here we go.
The monkey business illusion. Count how many times the players wearing white.
Let's do white instead.
That's white.
Okay.
Correct answer.
Who?
I got that.
Who? What's the right answer? Who got it?
16.
16? Did anyone get another answer?
Yeah, I did.
You did, yeah. Thank you. See, thanks for being honest. Come on. Yeah?
Yeah, I got like 12.
You got 12? Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. A little honesty is good in the world, guys. All right. Okay, cool. 16? What about you? How'd you
I
do?
got 16.
You got 16? 16? 16? You got 11? What about you? 12? 16. Okay, cool. All right. Who saw the gorilla?
I did.
Ah, okay. So, a lot of you.
Look for the gorilla.
Ah, wait.
No.
Who's seen this before?
I've never seen it.
Ah, yeah, so you guys are disqualified. No one? Okay, those of you who hadn't seen this before, you saw a gorilla? I promise you there was a gorilla that came in, and there was a gorilla.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
it.
Ah, okay, good. This is good. All right, nice. And anyone saw that the curtain changed color also?
Not that
I didn't see that.
No, you didn't notice that either?
Not that.
No? All right, let's watch the rest of it.
The correct answer is 16 passes. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again.
Again?
Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold.
Oh my God. How awesome.
When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events. And that's the monkey business illusion. learn more about this illusion.
Okay, so now we're gonna do a quick discussion. What can we learn about the clip that we just watched?
Perception is reality.
That your eyes can deceive you.
All right, one at a time. You said something.
Perception is reality.
Perception is reality. Okay,
In some way.
in some way, right?
In some way.
You said something.
I said something. I don't remember now.
Come on, you lost it. Shame. Okay.
Your eyes deceive you.
Oh, that your eyes can deceive you.
Oh, your eyes can deceive you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. What else? What do you guys think about this video? What else can it tell us?
You miss the obvious if you focus on something else.
There you go. That's a good one. That's a very good one.
The switch between the colors, it trigger your minds in a way that the perception may change.
And what do you think prevented your friends here from seeing the gorilla?
It was focused on the ball.
They're focused on the ball, right? Anything else?
Score. Score.
The score, the winning, the wanting to win,
Oh
the
man.
competition,
You got it.
the pinpointed focus on one thing, and my focus is on one thing that I can't see everything else that's going on. Of course, this is all good. And also you think you're going to do something one way, and all of a sudden it was black, but now it's white. It's like it shocks you. Then you're like extra. Oh, the rules change now. Let me be extra attentive. And you see that this is really this is my water. Is it?
Must be.
Must be.
Not
No?
mine.
What this tells us is that this is actually how a lot of us perceive the reality in this world. And and I guess it's just some goofy guerrilla scientific kind of psychological game, which is not so much a game. It's a study that tells you that people oftentimes are so focused on what is inside of them and what they think that they lose and are incapable of seeing the broader picture because their opinion or their thoughts clouds their eyes. And so they have an inability to perceive the broader picture or to see what's happening around it because their eyes are so focused on one point. And so the Kabbalists enter a conversation about the perception of reality. It's a huge, huge conversation. It's a very juicy topic. People love the conversation of perception of reality. Why? Because you're talking about going from a kind of a black perception, like a concealed perception, then all of a sudden acquiring an additional sense where I don't perceive creator, but now I perceive creator. And what is involved in all of that? And then the Kabbalists even tell us that it's that the whole of reality is really just me and the creator, and that you guys aren't even here really, that it's just me and the creator. The Kabbalists tell you there's so much, and it's such a rich topic in relation to the perception of reality that we really spend a lot of time discussing. But the problem is that we don't enter into philosophical debates. We're not philosophers here. Which is why there's some ground rules that we kind of have to set up from the get-go in order to be able to discuss such kind of an exalted topic in relation to the perception of reality. Why do we all perceive a broken world? Why do some people not feel that it's a broken world, feel that it's a perfect world? Why do some people feel like they can fix this world? They can be a world reformer. Why do some people, want to hide from everyone? And really what you see is that everyone's picture is drawn, or their movies are played before their eyes in a different way in accordance to their qualities and their upbringing and their education and everything and all of their experiences. You see that it shapes the reality of the world that they perceive. And honestly, it's completely different from the person who's sitting next to me. And so that's why we can sit here and we can debate about it's this way, no, it's that way. How do you describe to a person the color yellow? A person who's blind, how do you do it? What is yellow anyways? Do we all perceive the same color as yellow? I'm telling you, we can spend endless hours in debates. And this is what the philosophers do. The philosophers sit around, and there's many groups like this. They sit around all day and they pontificate without end. On why I think it's this way, and I think it's that way also, but then they think it's like this, and all we're doing is everyone's just talking, and we never get anywhere. which is why, or maybe you do get somewhere, I don't know. But the point is this, is that the Kabbalists know about all these things. They know how the world works, which is why we kind of set up some articles and a few things to really help us through this process of discovering what is the correct perception of reality. So we're going to turn to page 424 in our books. And we're going to read. We're going to read Article 34. Who wants to read? You're going to read? All right, let's do this. Let's go paragraph by paragraph, okay? So you read one paragraph, then we'll go down, we'll go like this, and then we'll jump up here to Sheila, and then we'll keep going down, okay? All right, so Mirna, take us away.
Let it not surprise you that you find such a conduct in our corporeal perceptions. Take our sense of sight, for example. We see a wide world before us, wondrously filled, but in fact we see all that only in our own interior. In other words, there is a sort of photographic machine in our hindbrain which portrays everything that appears to us and nothing outside of us.
For that, he has made for us there in a brain of polished mirror that inverts everything seen there, so we will see outside our brain. Of our face, yet what we see outside us is not a real thing. Nonetheless, we should be so grateful to his providence for having created that polished mirror in our brains, enabling us to see and perceive everything outside of us. This is because by that he has given us the power to perceive everything with clear knowledge and attainment, and measure everything from within and from without.
Without it, we would lose most of our perception. The same holds true with the godly will concerning godly perceptions. Even though all these changes unfold in the interior of the receiving souls, they nevertheless see it all in the giver himself, since only in this manner are they awarded all the perceptions and all the pleasantness in the thought of creation. You can also deduce that from the above parable. Even though we see everything as actually being in front of us, every reasonable person knows for certain that all that we see is only within our own brains.
So with the souls, although they see all the images in the giver, they still have no doubt that all these are only in their own interior and not at all in the giver.
Beautiful.
Since these matters.
I know you didn't get a chance to read. It's because we don't have the definition of the paragraphs here, and we skipped one. Okay, so what do the Kabbalists tell us? Because what we got from this is that it's saying that everything is inside of me. It's saying that everything that I perceive outside of me is happening inside of me. And then the Kabbalists go so far as to say that there's some polished mirror in the back of my head that displays to me everything that's taking place outside of me. And I don't know if many of you are like into quantum physics or these kind of subjects, but you'll see that the quantum physicists are saying this as well. Yet the Kabbalists were saying it hundreds of years ago. And so they're pretty much saying that everything that's taking place outside is really in you. And that the fact that you perceive or see something outside of you is filtered through screens. Let me explain. So the Kabbalists tell us that we're kind of like a black box with 5 openings, okay? What do you think these 5 openings are?
Pictures?
Our senses.
Okay.
How do I perceive this world? Okay, I perceive it by sight. I perceive it by taste, hearing,
Smell.
Smell and touch. I feel. So it's quite interesting actually how the human body works, because nothing actually ever enters your body. It only hits a membrane. So when I hear something, it actually vibrates. These little hairs in my ear vibrate, and it sends a chemical signal into my brain, which in turn then creates an image of what I'm hearing. And it's interesting because I think about this stuff all the time, and sometimes you'll be like sitting in your house and you hear some noise. And you hear the noise, and as a result of what you think the noise is, you've already painted a picture with all the past things, and maybe it's the cat or the, the this, the that, the refrigerator, whatever. It paints a picture of what you think it is as a result of the noise, right? And it's the same actually with our vision as well. Nothing ever penetrates. It touches your eyes, it sends chemical signals into my brain, and thus it formulates an image of what is outside of me. And the Kabbalists tell us that this is how we perceive the world that's outside of us. Yet the question really lies is, what is outside of us? Because if I'm only perceiving things through my senses, then how can I really say that I know what's outside of it? And the Kabbalists go even further, and they say that this black box, these senses, is actually filtering all of the information through your qualities, through your egoism. So this black box is driven by my egoism, how I perceive the world, how I see the world. It's censoring the information in a way on how, from my education, from my upbringing, from how I define and perceive the world. But then the Kabbalists go further, and they say that everything that is outside of us is creator. So everything that is out here is creator. But everything that is in here, inside, is just me. And what are my laws? How am I built? I'm built off of a will to receive pleasure. I'm egoistic. So how can I possibly perceive the spiritual, which is outside? And it's based off of different qualities than mine. Because my qualities are receiving, while the qualities of the creator are not. They're giving, bestowing, love. But I'm built off of these egoistic properties, okay? And so there's actually a law that we need to understand, and it's called the law of equivalence of form. And to describe the law of equivalence of form, the Kabbalists use an example such as this. In this world, we measure closeness and remoteness based off of physical proximity, distance, and really how, and the space between them, correct? Right. Because if you look at these two pens, you right now with your eyes, you say, oh, they're close to each other. But if you take a microscope and you go all the way down to the molecular level, you'll see that they're actually not touching. They're actually not touching at all. They're very separated. And as far in as you zoom in, you'll see that there's a whole sea of space between these two things. But according to our eyes, in this world, we perceive them as close. But in the spiritual world, the way we measure proximity and distance is in relation to its qualities. Let me explain. So you like Star Wars. I like Star Wars too. Already, we're closer. I like to watch Star Wars. Let's say I like to watch Star Wars while eating popcorn. And she likes to watch Star Wars while eating popcorn too. With pistachios. Me too. I'm down. Boom. We're closer. Now we both like to watch it in a dim room with our feet kicked up, no shoes, forget it, we're chilling, all like with the sound turned up. I want to feel the rumble when the spaceship comes in. I want to feel all this, right? Her too. Already we're closer and we're closer. And so what we see is that when two things have the same qualities, when they share the same closeness in relation to their qualities, there's actually a law that the Kabbalists describe that they become the same thing. Meaning, if you have two objects and they have separate qualities, such as receiving and bestowing, they're very separate or far away from each other. But eventually, as they draw closer and their qualities begin to merge, they become closer. So much so that there comes a point where if they actually have the same qualities, they are actually the same exact thing. And this is what the law of equivalence of form tells us. Because you can see how people can have very dissimilar qualities, like two politicians who are standing very close to each other on the stage, but they have such like different qualities in their views and what they stand for that they are like miles apart. And you see it also like with different friends, people. You can relate this to anything in life. You see how the closer what they like that I like, we're already closer to each other. And if they don't like something, like you can see if you're talking about a subject, you're like, oh yeah, I love this and I like that. And then immediately somebody goes, well, I don't like that. I think that's not fun. I think that's stupid. You know, boom, immediately, shoot, separation. And now it begins to separate you from this person. And then all the qualities are different. And then all the thoughts that enter about this person and why they said this and all this stuff. You see that it begins to separate people. Okay? Because remember, the wisdom of Kabbalah is also talking about the wisdom of connection. So we must observe these things on what brings people or things together and what separates them. So with this being said, in order for this black box, according to the law of equivalence of form, to be able to perceive or see what's outside of it, it must acquire the properties of what is outside of it. You all have heard me use the example, some of you have not, on how a radio receiver works. Because remember, the wisdom of Kabbalah is reception. It's how to receive or how to properly receive. Okay, so how does a radio tuner work, an old school radio tuner? Frequencies, right? Okay, so right now, there's a huge antenna, and it's broadcasting on 102 jams some songs, and it's sending the signal. The fact that we don't perceive the signal, or that it doesn't change the fact that it's not there. It is there. But because our sensory organs do not perceive it, we now say it's not there. But if we have a receiver, a way to tune into that, if we can tune this inner receiver to the frequency of what's taking place outside of it, which what the Kabbalists tell us are, if the outside, the creator, is love, bestowal, giving, and I acquire those qualities as well, I learn how to receive correctly, and I tune my tuner internally to such a way that I acquire the qualities of creator, I begin to now perceive, and it enters inside. And I can begin to penetrate these barriers, and I begin to perceive the spiritual because I acquire the qualities of the spiritual. And so it's important to understand this, that in order for us to perceive creator or to acquire creator, to feel him or anything, we must acquire it ourselves. We must invert our qualities of egoism to the qualities of love and bestowal. It's very simple.
Just a quick question so I can kind of understand it better. Could we say that the black box was the soul then in a way?
The black box is your physical body and egoism, which limits your current levels of perception because you live inside of this body. You don't live outside of it, you're in there. Where is the I? Where is the I inside of you? Who is the I? Is it a soul? Is it a spirit? People call it all kinds of things. But all you can deduce is that you're inside of this body and that you have senses. And that you cannot perceive what's outside of it.
I was trying to see, because if let's say, like you said, the soul is inside, whether it's the I or not, and then outside would be the soul of the creator, which is everything else, and the body, which to a certain extent would be the ego, would be the separation or the illusion of separation. So by inverting the qualities, you would just perceive the rest of.
Let's say your soul is out here.
Mm.
You want to believe that it's in here, okay? But tomorrow, God forbid, you die.
Realize it's outside.
It comes back, and you're now like, okay, I never got to experience creator. So you never took something for yourself. It doesn't exist in here. It's not inside. Because surely if it was in there, and you would hold it true and you would not let go, even though you die. You would still exist despite that. But Kabbalists tell us that because you do not have it, you have not acquired it yet, then you must continue to until you acquire this portion. And then so much so that this box shapes how I view the world and what I see. And it changes the image completely. And, you know, some people that are very religious see things one way. Some people that are very esoteric see it another way. Some people that are atheistic another way. Some people, anything. Like so much so, let me tell you, like how crazy these things are. For one, with my grandmother, do not spin a knife on the table. Don't spin a knife. You spin a knife, she'll slap you across the table because it's like the worst thing in the possible world. My mother-in-law, and these are all things that you hear from growing up. My mother-in-law, she's terrified of looking at 5 or more banana trees. Because if you look at like a bunch, like a 5 or more banana trees, some ghost will appear.
That's a new one.
It is, right? But look, when she was a little girl, they told her this. Now it becomes part of her perception. Now it's part of how she views the world. Then all of a sudden, let's say years later, she reads a book and it tells her a bunch of information. Now she thinks this is how the world is, and it shapes her view. And then like this, and then when other people say, no, how can you tell her? Don't, look at those banana trees. I can't look at them. I can't look at them. I will die. I will see the ghost. And how can you, so much so that you see that what you're experiencing in your life is shaping your perception of reality. And that's why the wisdom of Kabbalah does not enter into people. If you're not ready or you don't want to hear, we don't come and we don't tell you anything. And actually, there's even rules for those that instruct. We can't put an obstacle in front of a blind person, meaning that you'll trip, you'll fall over it because you yourself have no eyes, you can't see. So we need to be careful with the amount of information that's being given also. Because the point is this, is that you have a reality that's shaped this way. And it's your reality. And I'm telling you, the Kabbalists go so far, they say, if you go to a person now and you deconstruct how he views the world, and he's not ready, and he's not willing, and you go to him forcefully, and he goes, you deserve death. Like, they should probably kill you because you just totally destroys this guy's perception of the world. Because he has no inability or want or desire to actually acclimate with what's happening outside of him. Because he's so held on to how he thinks the world is. Because Mama said, and this and that, and the information that he's acquired, which is fine. And all that no one will take away from anyone. They will retain it and maintain it, and it's theirs. Of course, later we will understand why all of it and all this. But according to the Kabbalists, all they tell us is, if you really want to perceive what's existing outside of you, then you must change your qualities. You must acquire also a will to bestow. And so much so that it's in the shape of something called a masach, which we already discussed.
I just have one more question before you go on to make sure I understand. Can we
We're
say
on the
that?
question and answer session. If I let you do this time, you'll do it all the time. And then everyone else will do it. And
Write your
that's fine.
questions.
write your question down.
Gotcha.
Do you remember the rules? So we have something called a masach. So if I am this black box, an egoist, then I must acquire some new sense because I can't perceive what's outside of me. So the Kabbalists tell me that I can acquire something called a masach. A masach is an anti-egoistic screen. Masach. A masach is an anti-egoistic screen. I must acquire this in order to perceive the outer. I'm going to leave you with that. We're going to watch a clip, and then we'll keep going.
You can ask many people in the world who will tell you there's, yes, one control over the world, the governance of nature, one God, one force, one law, one formula, some universal formula like Einstein wanted to do. It's also control. one formula in which all the other formulas, all the rules on all the levels and everything there is they enter as included within that formula, a universal formula. The universal formula is something we discovered long ago. Light on one hand, X, and Kli on the other side. The desire is Y, and the function between them is the screen, the masach. That's the simple formula. No more than that. You see what I'm talking about? That's the formula. If you have a desire here, yes, in which you multiply it upon the screen, it equals light. That's it. There is nothing other than this. There's nothing other than this. Now, what is here? Light, which is a constant. Desire, which is constant. And the screen depends on me. That's it. That's the whole formula. There is nothing else in nature. It's too bad that Einstein's not here. You would calm down.
So what do we have here? We have the law of equivalence of form, which we already discussed, and we have the screen, which is a masach. And the masach operates under one principle, which is intention. My intent. A knife can both be used for killing or for saving a life in some surgical procedure. So depending on the intent in which we use a tool, depends on in which way do I receive the light that reforms. So by changing my intention, spirituality is perceived. Meaning this, is that if we know that Creator is constantly giving us light and endless light and pleasure all the time, He wants you to enjoy. And I am like the receiver who's just gobbling it all up, then I have no ability to perceive that He exists. But if I acquire a masach, an anti-egoistic screen, an intention, where I say, okay, I will eat this food, or I will receive this pleasure that He wants to give me, but to whom am I giving the pleasure? Am I receiving the pleasure for myself? Am I receiving it for the sake of receiving? Or am I receiving it for the sake of bestowing? Meaning that I can receive pleasure and I can enjoy all the pleasure, but to whom am I giving the pleasure in return? This is kind of that situation that we discuss when you go to your mother's house and you've already eaten, and she has all day been cooking because she knows precisely what you love and in what way you enjoy it, and the exact temperature, and she laid it all before you. All the delights that she knows you more than anyone, and she knows exactly how you love that cake and the bread and the butter and the drink, and it's like exact to your specification of how much you enjoy. But you're already full. You can't enjoy this pleasure she wants to give you. So immediately you get there and you're like, oh no, Mom, no, thanks. And you're like, man, but it's like all the pleasure just for me. You're like, no, I can't, Mom. And then you look up and you look at her, and you see that she's like, no, you must receive the pleasure. I want you to enjoy. And to what extent am I willing to receive the pleasure, to eat the cake, even though I don't have a desire for it, I don't want it? To what way? Or even if I'm starving and I want to eat it, oppositely. But who am I giving the pleasure? Am I just gobbling the whole plate up? Or am I giving her the pleasure because she wants me to receive it? And so this whole conundrum, we're speaking on a base level, because this thing expands even further. And a lot happens after one acquires a masach, which is already the spiritual perception, and already acquires spirituality. And from here, we go even further. But for today, class 2, we won't cover it all. All we need to understand is that the masach, once a person acquires a masach, he has the ability now to receive pleasure, to receive but to do it in order to bestow, in order to give pleasure also. So almost he becomes the giver also. He becomes the giver of the pleasure because he can receive the food and eat it, but he's giving his mother the pleasure. She's the one who's enjoying it by him receiving it. It's not just him receiving and receiving. So we see that with the screen and the intention is our ability to work for the sake of others and not for my own sake. That by acquiring the masach and the right intention, now I can work for others correctly and not just for my own sake. Okay? So let's read a little further. Let's go to page 129. We're going to read item 40. Where is it? It's on 128? Okay. All right, so on 128, no, it's item 40. No, it's 129. Okay, so Marilyn, you're up.
And I know that it is completely unaccepted in the eyes of some philosophers.
Here, one second. Let's wait for Jose to get there with us, and then we'll start. 129, item 40. Right there. Okay, you ready? Everyone ready? All right, let's read.
And I know that it is completely unaccepted in the eyes of some philosophers. They cannot agree that man, which they think of as low and worthless, is the center of the magnificent creation. But they are like a worm that is born inside a radish. It lives there and thinks that the world of the Creator is a bit as bitter, as dark, and small as the radish it was born in. But as soon as it breaks the shell of the radish and peeps out, it claims in bewilderment. I thought the whole world was the size of the radish. I was born in, and now I see a grand, beautiful, wondrous world before me.
So we see that once a person acquires the masach, once he has the ability to not receive solely for his own pleasure, that he now has the ability to receive for others and for the sake of others, he acquires the qualities of the outer one. He begins now to have the ability to perceive, and he comes into equivalence of form with the Creator. Yet at the beginning, he begins sort of like, let's say, in this stage, where he's as far as the east is from the west. But then he slowly begins to acquire a little bit more, until he comes into complete adhesion with Creator. And this process here, this 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll see that later it'll come back. We'll put it in the form of this. And when does the masach comes and this occurs? Where does the light and where does Creator enter and what happens after that? All the details we will put into this. But what we need to understand now is precisely that a person, once he acquires the qualities of Creator, he now can perceive Creator. But there are many people in this world that already think they can perceive Creator. There are many people that already think that they're working with the appellations and all His glory and all the treasures of the King. What do we do with them? Nothing. We let them do what they're doing. But the Kabbalists have a special rule where they say that we don't work with one law, which is called abstract names. Okay? So let's go to the next thing. Because how do you know? The following question that you're going to have is how do you know, or how can you say that I've acquired Creator? Or how can I be sure that I've acquired Him? Because I can perceive Creator. He speaks to me. I have discussions with Him. I see how He works in this world. And the Kabbalists go into this subject as well. Let's go to page 23. It's the concept of abstract names. Okay, so you're next.
Many believe that all the words and the names in the wisdom of Kabbalah are kind of abstract names. This is so because it deals with godliness and spirituality, which are above time and space, where even our imagination has no hope. For this reason, they have decided that surely these matters speak only of abstract names, or even more sublime and exalted than abstract names, as they are completely and from the outset devoid of elements that are imagined.
Okay, so we're going to go to paragraph 2 with Karen, but let's just read again that last part. It says, for this reason, they have decided that surely these matters speak only of abstract names, or even more sublime and exalted than abstract names, as they're completely and from the outset devoid of elements that are imagined. Okay, so no imagination. Let's go to Karen.
But that is not the case. On the contrary, is it Kabbalah or Kabbalah?
Kabbalah.
Kabbalah uses only names and appellations that are concrete and real. It is an unbending rule for all Kabbalists that anything we do not attain, we do not define by a name and a word.
Here you must know that the word attainment, Hebrew, saga, implies the ultimate degree of understanding. It derives from the phrase that thy hand shall reach, Hebrew. That means that before something becomes utterly lucid, as though gripped in one's hand, Kabbalists do not consider it attained, but understood, comprehended, and so on.
Ready. And all this you'll go back and reread it this week. What this is telling us is precisely that concept that Kabbalists don't deal with abstract names. They don't deal with things that are utterly lucid or not properly kind of gripped in the sense that, because one can say that things are experiential in the sense that I have an experience and I call it spiritual. I have an experience and I call it spiritual. But then how do we come to an understanding or an agreement that we're both agreeing on the same experience and we're both calling it spiritual? Because it's the same way that we can't say that each of us knows what the color red is or how a hamburger tastes or a tomato tastes to you tastes the same to me. I cannot say that your spiritual experience is equivalent to my spiritual experience, because each one kind of paints it in different forms, in different colors, in different ways, and he describes it in different formats. But yet, how do we come to an understanding where it's equal and that we say, yes, this is what spiritual is? And which is why the Kabbalists specifically have this law between them, which is anything that we do not attain, we do not define by a name and a word. Meaning that everything like kind of in spirituality that's above the barrier that separates this world and the upper world, we don't discuss. There's no need to discuss it because none of us have achieved it. None of us have experienced this. But what if we have? What if we have experienced it? How can we describe it? And remember that we went so far as to say that all of us that have gone to visit the town of London can describe the town of London kind of in the same way. Yet each of us from our own angle will describe it differently from how we perceived it. And this all stems in the roots of that spirituality is not an individual revelation. It's a group revelation. It's a revelation in everyone, not just in you. Meaning that what we perceive, we will perceive collectively. Meaning that when the heavens open and the angels flutter and the trumpets sound, it's not just something that one will perceive, but rather all of us will perceive. And in the sense that we will all feel it. And then we can all name it the same thing, because we all have felt the same precise degree. Which is why the Kabbalists go even further to tell us that the Creator he doesn't meddle with individuals. Actually, the prayers of the individuals aren't heard. It's only the prayers of the many, or the work done collectively in groups. This is when the Creator enters, which is why at that stage, then we can say, and that we can name something. And even then, the Kabbalists have gone even further and have tested it. That the fact that the book of Zohar is written with all 125 degrees, describing all 125 degrees of closeness to Creator, is it actually this way? The Ari later added and wrote and described precisely in more detail what the sensations were. Bala Sulam later even added more, describing precisely how those sensations are. And all of them, if you notice, across all of the generations of Kabbalists that have written all the books, you'll see that they're writing about the same exact things. They're writing style changes, they're writing for that generation, but they're describing exactly the same things with exactly the same words. which is why when we say nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechidah, those that have felt it or have seen or perceived or felt, they know exactly what we're talking about and how we're describing. Up until then, we're just learning, let's say, the science of how a thing works. Because that's the difference between between modern science today that can tell you, hey, there's a whole reality outside of you. They can tell you that, hey, there's a whole reality outside of you that you do not perceive. There's a whole upper degree that you don't perceive. But only Kabbalah can tell you the why, the root of all of it. The fact that, yes, you do not perceive this yet because we have not evolved to the stage of being able to perceive it. But then once we all enter that stage, then we will all perceive a collective whole reality. It's not that yours will be whole over here, and it'll be how you perceive it, and then him over here will perceive it in this way, and then if not, we'll never be here. We'll never be one. Because you will perceive spirituality in your way, and he will perceive it in his way. And then you will live in your upper world, and he will live in his upper world. And then we're never in a collective upper world, which is why the wisdom of Kabbalah is specifically built and learned in groups, because this is how the upper system works. It's in the collective, not in the individual. All right, so that's why we have the rule. Anything we do not attain, we do not define by a name or a word. We live by this. Okay, so I know it says workshop. We still have to take a break, but let's do some questions before, and then we'll jump into workshop, because I do want to get you guys out and not terribly late tonight. So
why must we attain togetherness? No, that's really not the question. Why do we have to have the same identity in the end? Why must we?
because we're the same thing. We're the same soul. But you have your root in the soul. From that big circle that we drew, Sheila you have your part, your little piece of that soul, your grain of your sesame seed. And I have my sesame seed. But we're still the same thing. But also, so much so that they say that the nation of Israel, or rather those that have the point in the heart, and when we unite, we're actually one, unique, and unified, in the sense that we're one, we're unique, meaning you have your qualities. Everything that's built in you and how you feel and perceive and everything, but we're also unified in the sense that we've merged together in a way where you lose your individuality, but rather you gain the complete wholeness of everything else. Yeah. So it's which is the best part, because everyone is like, so what do I have to do now? Like, I have to dress like you, I have to like look like you, I gotta cut my hair like you, I gotta like what you like. And it's like, no, you be you. But everything inside of us and our qualities, we can then become and merge into one. While you still will like steak and he will like hamburgers and she will not eat any of them because she's vegetarian. You know, however we align ourselves, each one will maintain his qualities, but we will attain the godliness between us by having the same thoughts, the same appreciations, the same values.
Let's do it.
Listen.
Not sure if this question has been asked before, but why is there a need for concealment from the creator?
Yeah, this is we went over it last week for sure, and it's a common question, like why did the creator have to conceal himself from us? And really, it's you know, we don't have it here, but I think I'm going to send you guys the PDF version of it, or actually a video clip of it. I promise you that I'm going to send you guys this. It's a children's story, actually, a Kabbalist children's story that describes this whole thing. It's called The Wizard who didn't want to be alone. And I'll send it to you, and it describes this wizard who lives in a tower, a very high tower, and he's all alone. And he's so sad to be alone. And he wants to, and so he thinks, what can I create that is like me and that will appreciate the things that I will appreciate? So he creates a rock. But the rock just sits there and it doesn't do anything, and it doesn't appreciate the thing he appreciates, and it can't enjoy all the things he wants to give it. So then he's sad to be alone. So then he says, what can I make now? And he says, I will make a flower. And the flower, okay, sometimes it rises to enjoy what I want to give it, but really it just kind of sits there and it doesn't do anything. How sad it is to be alone. And then he says, so now he creates a dog. And the dog, yes, it loves me unconditionally, but it doesn't appreciate what I appreciate. It doesn't like what I like. It just sits on the ground. It just wants to be near me. It doesn't have its own kind of consciousness. So he says, you know what I'll make? I will make a person. And the whole story unfolds like this. It's for children, but let me tell you, it describes precisely the process of creation. And it's the most beautiful thing, and then it brings it all the way back to the 21st century into where we are today. And I'll send you guys the video clip of it. It's pretty cool. It's like puppets and stuff, but and there's a physical book that's it's a beautiful story, but really describes the fact that that then later when the human is created, that there's this tower, and that the human once it finds itself in a world full of all the pleasures, all he wants are the pleasures. He wants in a world full of football and hot hamburgers and hot dogs. What need does he have for the wizard in the tower? When all he wants is to enjoy the shoes and the nice and the girls and all the stuff. What need does he have for the king in the tower? But then all of a sudden he begins to feel something calling him, and it's the creator pulling him and pulling him. And he needed this in order for the creator to separate, for the human to separate the fact that he has all the pleasures in the world. He can have all of it, but there is a giver of the pleasure. And now he can be one with the giver, and they can enjoy together because of the fact that that he understood that, yes, he has all the buffet before him, but he looks up from the buffet and sees that there's a giver. And now he can be like him and enjoy like him, and they have the same qualities. You'll love the video.
All right, so my question was, because based on my understanding, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, we have not yet attained ourselves. Well, can you say that the reason that we haven't acquired it yet is because we don't have the sense to perceive the soul that we all share? Okay, got it now.
Yes. Next question.
So I take it you're going to touch on reincarnation?
We actually did it. You weren't with us when we did that, did you?
I mean, if you die and you don't have anything acquired.
Yeah, you come back. Yeah, so we actually, it's not necessarily in our curriculum to discuss it, but we do it as one of the fun lectures that we do. Why? Because it's such like a juicy topic that people want to come talk about it, right? So they want to know what it is. Like they're like, okay, you'll talk about this and that. I'm not interested. But once you enter these like really esoteric stuff, they're like, I want to know about it. So they come to our classes. Which is how half of you probably came because of that class. But the point is this, is that, yes, the creator told us, remember how there was the 3-axis model? There was 1, 2, and 3? At the beginning of the class, from class 1, there was stage 1, stage 2, we descended into this world, and then there's stage 3. Okay, so you are a piece of that shattered soul. You descended, okay? Now you're in a process of correcting your root of the soul, your piece of the soul, meaning that you underwent a whole process of humanity, of development. You were the caveman, you were the later in the Renaissance period. You went through all the stages because your egoism was developing. Your ego was developing and becoming more and more refined, so coarse and thick that now, and you enjoyed all the pleasures of the world over and over again, but you couldn't do it all in one shot. You could, as a Cro-Magnon man, you couldn't have enjoyed all the pleasures that the Creator had for you in all its vastness, because there was no TV, no MTV or Star Wars. You know how you would miss the pleasure of Star Wars. So you had to over and over again reincarnate, always over and over again, coming to a point where now you arrive to this stage, to the end of days, is what the Kabbalists call it. It's the last generation. It's the time where humanity now is ready to accept the whole of the wisdom of Kabbalah, to realize that there is a giver, that and the glory of his name will be, everyone will know, from the greatest of them to the smallest of them. We're in that generation now. And really it's that point where you come to realize that you have everything, but you still feel empty. And that's where the point in the heart returns. So to put it into reincarnation, the Kabbalists later say that you changed your body like you changed your shirt, meaning you were evolving and evolving and evolving. Once you attain the spiritual degree, you can look back upon all your incarnations and understand why and what occurred. But until that point, it's like a dream within a dream. You are still incapable of perceiving all of it. You can see some of it maybe, perhaps, but the Kabbalists tell you the whole thing when you reach spirituality.
And that would include other dimensions and all the other.
The Kabbalists tell us that at this stage there's only two dimensions, right? This and even this world and the upper world aren't different dimensions, because upper world is here. We just can't perceive it. It's before us, but your eyes cannot see it yet. So when you're talking about dimensions, is a whole other subject, and it goes into millenniums, they call it. We're now going, after this, we're going to go to the third and fourth millennium, which is after Gamar Tikkun, which is the final correction. Once the whole soul has returned to complete adhesion with Creator, then we move to the next dimension.
So Kabbalists don't follow that there's other dimensions going on at the same time as this.
There's one creation, one Creator, one place where the work is happening, and it's right here, right now.
But if we can't really perceive, isn't it possible we can't perceive that too?
The Kabbalists who have attained all 125 degrees tell us that all degrees of spirituality are here, meaning like that's why the wisdom of Kabbalah is a method that you can reveal Creator in this lifetime, so now. And if you wanted to reveal all 125 degrees now, you would. Eventually you would reach a plateau, meaning that once you hit 125, you can't go any further. Why? Because you need everybody else too. It's the whole of creation, it's not just you. So then we would move to the next stage of evolution.
So I'm sorry, just one more thing. I'm a little confused because you say that the ones that have already attained, but you said we have to attain it as all in one. So how could they have attained without us?
Because they're the ones that built the ladder for us. Those are the Kabbalists. Yossi ben Kisma, all these guys. All these books are not written from a degree of this world. They're written from a degree of the upper world. They're describing precisely the upper ladder and the degrees of spirituality. So then now we use these books as a blueprint to follow, so that because the soul develops the same. And so let's say we had it, I'll draw it really small. We had stage 1, and then up here stage 3, and this was 2. Up here in 1, here we were developing, and then we went up. When the Kabbalists, the authors of the Zohar, together, a group of 10, they reached all 125 degrees. Between them, they built all the degrees, meaning that along this line, there's a degree of Abraham, there's a degree of Moses, there's a degree of all the Kabbalists of the past, because these weren't people. They were spiritual degrees that we achieved. These books are written in a language called a language of roots and branches. But there is a law that once in spirituality must have touched corporeality, meaning that there was a guy named Moses or all this, but the degree that he achieved became inscribed in the upper, that became that degree, and he is now, we aim for that degree of Moses, we aim for that degree of Abraham, all the way up to 125 degrees. And the Kabbalists, that's one. Once you acquire spirituality, you remain in the spiritual. You don't descend back to this world. And they're pulling us, calling us, waiting for us to do the correction so that we can be with them together, dancing, singing, loving, enjoying everything that Creator has to offer us. But we're down here eating, we're in the stench of this lower world, enjoying the musky smell of sewage. Yeah.
All right, so last question for me on what's the soul connection between the Father and the Son?
Father and the Son?
Yeah, because I understand we're basically all, I guess, in a sense, the same person, but is it in a pure sense with the Father and the Son, or?
Honestly, there's no. There's been. You mean like physically, like me and my son Isaac?
Like for example, like my dad died when I was younger, but according to my mom, I still walk like him, I laugh like him, I still have a lot of the same.
Like type in DNA, maybe?
Exactly. I guess I'm asking, is there some type of Kabbalistic,
None.
Okay.
There's no ties between fathers, mothers, children's descendants. So much so that if your great grandfather sat next to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma himself, and you were were somehow related because he was distant, it has nothing to do with you. We see this even, it goes further with Kohens and Levis and these last names that have existed for that, oh, I'm a Kohen, you know, I'm special, so guys, respect me because I'm, you know, but then the other guy has a regular last name. None of this matters in the wisdom of Kabbalah. You don't get special passes. You don't get bonus because your dad was like something. All you get is his traits. He walked that way. He talked that way. He laughed that way. You get his DNA. You don't get, there's no advancement. So much so that a father can do and gain in spirituality, and that doesn't mean that his son will.
So spiritual attainment is not inherited.
No, it's each one in his own correction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's which is why you know the best thing you can do is create a good environment for your kids and hope that they understand it. Because I can't force my beautiful son Isaac to want this. I see that naturally he gets from the environment and he loves it and he enjoys it. He sees it's good. But then when he's like 13 and on, and when finally like the real like egoism enters him, you know, and now he's like, you know, after he's like a man kind of, I can't. There's no coercion in spirituality. Meaning you cannot, no teacher can enter a student or a father can enter a son and try to implant something in him. It's impossible. You cannot, I can't meddle inside of another person.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's not inheritable. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
I have a quick question. You drew a pyramid of like still vegetative,
Animates.
The human or
The human degree, yeah.
so what is that still? What is still? What is that?
Yeah, still is all the rocks, the planets, Earth.
So by still it means that it's not alive.
It's an inanimate object.
So it doesn't mean that it's
Doesn't move.
that doesn't move.
No, it talks about consciousness, right? So a table has one desire. They have desires because the whole of creation is built off of desires. This table has one desire, and its desire is to be a table, and to sit here and to hold stuff up on it. All right, that's its desire. That's what it wants. The straw to be a straw. Everything is built off of qualities, and yes, we created new things, and those things we created stuff.
Okay, so it's like a level of
Consciousness.
level of consciousness.
One above it, and that's why it's built like a pyramid, because you need all the rocks and all the universes to swirl just the right way to be able to create one plant on this planet. And then you need all the plants on this planet to suck up all the CO2 in the world to be able to create 1 degree of the next one, of the animal. And then you need all the animals and all the bad in the world and all the wolves and all the animalistic like carnal desire to spawn one human who his head is why do they call him human? Because his head is above his desires. It's like he's above his carnality, his stomach. You know, everything is here. The pleasure, the enjoyment is here. So his mind is above it. So he stands erect, meaning he's human. But it's not. It's because he's already connected to the higher degree.
Is there a possibility there's a higher level?
Once we reach the human degree, then it's like the completeness of the whole pyramid. Once and there's even like a critical mass that will occur, meaning that qualitatively we see that one vegetative degree is worth all those still, right? So one human degree is worth all the animal. So meaning we don't need everyone to do this work. We just need a critical mass enough that will then invert the pyramid, and then we'll be able to change all of humanity together. And then at that stage, then it changes the playing field. Then we'll figure out what to do after that. And that's already what we discussed about the 125 degrees. That's already at this stage, when all of humanity already reaches something called the final correction. Because remember, we're in a process of correcting our desires. So we reach this thing called Gamar Tikkun. Gamar Tikkun. It's the final correction. And you know, we even drew on the calendar when this would occur. Remember, everyone was there. If you missed it, it's going to be in 270 some odd years. It will occur. Final correction. 270 something years. How do we know this? Let's save a little something for the future. So let's keep going, okay? Any other questions before we go? Oh, so you haven't asked one question today. Yes, we definitely need a question from you. Yeah, before the workshop, we're going on a break.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question.
Is there a break? Best question you've asked. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're gonna take a break for 5 minutes. I'm telling you, 5, not 4, not 6, and then we're gonna go straight to workshop. Okay, so don't leave early. We need to get through the workshop. Okay, 15 minutes. If you guys work together, 5 minutes each one.
I don't know if I can make it. I like to work.
I cannot hold you here. All right, let me put some music on for you guys.
Can you manage?
2:31, right?
Thank you.
Let's do it.
I had a question. I don't know if it would be sort of the same. I think it comes from me reading somewhere. But is there something?
Can you get there? No.
Is that everything?
There's just more and more Keter. Yeah. It's always, it's like imagine it like DNA or something, like, or fractals, where there's like there's 10 sefirot, and then when you think you're at the highest, then there's another 10, and then there's another 10, another 10, all the way like this, and then there's the whole thing is a 10, and this is the way the whole structure is built. And those 5 worlds things that we were talking about, all 125 is Keter, is the 10 sefirot, and then it gets further broken down within it. So believe me, once you get to 1, you got a whole nother one, and then another one, and then that one collapses into another 10, and then like this, all the way until the very end.
So there are some parts that we don't fully understand, or I mean, if they're kind of the same as they're like higher, it's not like, I mean, I'm just wondering.
It's up there. It's up there, man. We just the Kabbalists, the authors of the Zohar, they wrote all about it. We just can't, you know, we're still working with the small stuff, you know, with the little kid toys, you know, but eventually we'll get to the big ones. You know?
I was just wondering. And for the
Time.
Yeah, go.
We need to register. We haven't registered.
Exactly. I know. I asked Juan yesterday. He sent me information. I'll do it. I have 2 jobs. I work on it.
Don't worry. Register.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
We're already there.
Maybe less.
What's up, Rafa? You need to.
No, I just want to leave this here for Sterling. Is the only one that I don't have.
All right. So what's up? What were you saying?
I think I understood something like the creator doesn't get qualities assigned to her. Like we can't really describe what the creator is. More than the line or stuff like that. So like things that I would say about you, like you're great, or you're perfect, you're imperfect, or omniscient, or omnipresent. Those things you can't really assign to.
We will. That's all this stuff, all these names here, Sag, Ak, Ma, Bon, all this stuff in here. This is all different like feelings of creator. Where sometimes I would call him this, sometimes I would call him that. It's all like within the whole structure of creation. It's all inside of it. And then again, it's fractal, right? So sometimes I feel it this way, but then I feel it that way. But then I come back to the same one, but it's on a higher level. And so it's all just more and more creator. But when we change, we feel more and more of him in different ways. And we attribute different names to those feelings.
But could you say that the creator is perfect? Is that,
yeah.
What does that sound like to a Kabbalist?
No, of course it is. They say stuff about it. They say, the creator says, I change it not. It's like, boom, it's like all creator. And it's us that's like has the change to perceive him. But yeah, it's perfect. It's good. You'll see. Well, I don't know. I mean, with time, everything opens up. It just we're on level 2, you know, so but we'll get there. We'll describe all of it.
And that's the color that I have opinions about things that
What?
are fine.
Good,
In
good.
our society, like abortion. Yeah, with
No, all they say is that these are all this stuff is things that we're seeing in this generation, some of what we've seen in prior generations. It's all just different forms of
We're doing a lot of
see.
work to get to that
Different-
generation.
No, with us, it's just, they say it's just things that we'll see that are in reality that we see that are taking place, and that eventually it'll all be
Yeah,
correct.
and you're right,
With the
that
light
is
that
the biggest
reforms that
problem.
comes, it'll all be correct. But also, it's animal.
Especially with me,
You
like,
see
when
miscarriages
he was
in
talking,
animals.
I was counting all the balls and she would grill her
There's
anything
no-
else, and just, you know, then you realize
This is like
I'm very anal, very, you know,
It's
all I,
why
people say do
enter
this
into
and
all
I
these
want to
things?
do it
It's
right,
like there's
so
no need.
that's all I
We're
did.
focusing on this. We're focusing on the straight to creative, which is why we're not world reformers. We won't go and like try to improve this world. The world is already perfect. You'll see later when we start reading some of the other books and the other articles, it describes how the whole thing is beautiful, it's perfect, and it's us that see it imperfect.
We were just talking
And
earlier.
the creator, he's showing you
Yeah.
with your eyes.
Very good.
Because remember, you perceive the creator, but you see imperfection. You know, but you're the one that says it's imperfect. Because he is perfect. So what do you need to change here to then be able to see that it's perfect? It's constantly trying to reveal himself to you, but it's in the form of stuff you don't like. Some dude cutting you off, this, that.
Sorry to
Right.
stuff to go.
Yes, exactly, at the right time, when you ask it, and at the right time, yes,
Or
exactly.
the third, which are the last 2 classes.
And that is very true.
I don't know. They're really not bad as far as the holiday goes. We have this one, the third one is on the 13th. The fourth one is on the 20th. The fifth one is on the 27th. He's going on. And the last one's on the 3rd. So I don't know. Doesn't seem like a terrible thing for us.
Well, what I admire is that
Right.
Well,
you
we're
have
recording the
good
lessons,
faith,
man.
this is
Yeah.
not
And
your
email
first
your
one.
questions, you know.
It's
You know, let 'em-
very complicated, and it's my
We
first
can't-
one.
Now we're gonna do work.
Second language is quite impressive.
All right,
I'd like to read the last one.
let's find our ways to our seats. Once the ladies are back, we'll get going to the workshop.
Juan, could you also, unless it might have been in that first one I didn't get, can you send me that thing that we read and then it went backwards and it went the other way?
Yeah, I included it in the thing,
Did you in
but
the first one? Okay.
but
I
it didn't have
get
the one. But I forwarded it to you.
Okay. all right.
Just now when I
Okay.
fixed your email address and then I forwarded
Okay,
it.
I
So
don't like
don't worry, it's in there.
Okay,
Yeah, because I knew you asked for it, so I
Yeah,
sent it to you.
Now for everybody else who will be able to make it, 'cause,
We'll have to ask. Yeah, we'll have to ask. Because if not, I mean, the problem is if we postpone and we don't keep getting together, and then we wait 2 weeks and then we get together again, half of you guys won't come back. It's the dude. I'm telling you, all of a sudden it's like, because 2 weeks you cool down. It's funny how things work. I'm telling you, we got to keep moving. The goal is keep moving. Let's see. We'll talk about it with each other. I know you don't want to miss, bro. Believe me. But in the scheme of things, man, it's the holidays. It's gonna suck for everyone. Because so let's see. Because if it's not you, it's someone else. We must keep going. Unless it's like everyone's gone, then it's like okay, guys.
If enough people is missing, maybe we couldn't do 2, but now we could do at least 1.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. Let's at least ask, right?
You have the videos you can watch them.
I feel you decide.
It's not the same.
Yeah, you're right, it's not the same. He said, yeah, you want to, well, you can meet these people in virtual, and I said, I don't want to be in virtual.
Yeah, one makes you laugh. I like those.
Even though this is all virtual, it's happening, but still, I wouldn't mean it in this reality of virtual.
It's crazy with the perception of reality. It's like that. You can do all kinds of. It's the truth.
Basically.
Yeah, you
We can have this conversation on during mistakes.
You know what?
During mistakes.
in a dream state.
This is the one where dream is in sleep.
No, there's articles about that, about that we were as dreamers, that we don't actually live in the real reality. We live like in a dream reality where we're not awake yet. And then of course that's why we don't even mess with dreams.
I was just gonna say, what are the dreams?
They're
in the
dreams
dream
of
here?
dreams. That's why they're so abstract and so intangible. They're just like, it's all subconscious flutters. Yeah, we don't. Kabbalists don't discuss those things.
They don't discuss dreams, you said?
Dreams, no, absolutely not. It's you can see it. It's just I don't know. It's funny, like
What about the people in the Bible that interpret dreams, like what's the name of it, Jacob?
right, remember that everything in the Bible is up in the upper. So even though it says the word dream, then there's a Kabbalistic term that actually means dream, that it talks about the real actual thing of what a dream is, and because it's like in the root of the word and this and that. So
Yeah, I know you explained that. For example, Moses would be a spirit versus a person, even though he was actually a person.
it's a spiritual state. Yeah.
So the events in the Bible, I'm pretty sure not all of them happen, exactly as if it's written. Probably on a higher level, but not on the corporeal. But do at least a good percentage of the events, happen in physicality? Or?
There is a law that it must have happened at least that it must have touched this world, meaning that there was a guy named Moses and there was in Egypt and they did exit. But I told you about Moses in Egypt, Moses being the quality of bestowal, Pharaoh being the quality of egoism. And then yeah, and then you told him? Yeah. And then so what's the land of Egypt? It's the land of egoism, and so we're trying to exit that land. It's funny because the Kabbalists actually tell us that there's stories that they have lots of stuff.
So it's more like metaphors than.
Because
it's internal. It's the whole thing describes all the books, everything, all the whole of the Torah only describes this process of there's an ego and there's a will to receive and a will to bestow. And there's just more and more different kind of versions, I was trying to explain to him, more and more fractals or versions of it, that once you think you've done it to this degree, then you must do it even more and more so and more so.
I noticed on the Egyptians, they have like a kind of a chill life themselves too, but it seems like theirs is a lot more egoistic. It's like
it's funny actually. The Kabbalists had some notes written somewhere. Their teacher told us that it was that actually the Hebrews that were in Egypt, they actually didn't even have it that bad. They weren't like slaves in the sense where that they wrote they were slaves. They were landowners and they were equal to everyone, but they were called as slaves, meaning that they were attached slaves to the will to receive. And it's not that they were actually like how Hollywood depicts it, that it was like, Okay, so let's get back into it. Let's do the workshop. So you all know that the wisdom of Kabbalah is also known as the wisdom of connection. And but we must do it in the right format because, again, we want to try to simulate this stage of equivalency of form. And so we have certain rules that we go by when we talk to each other. Okay, so let's watch the clip and then we'll discuss the rules a little bit further.
Of the round table. Around the table, no one is more important or less important. Everyone is equal and very important. We don't reject opinions or negate, but only collaborate. The real solution won't come from knowledge or verbal perfection, but only from our connection.
Okay, so what are the rules? Everyone is equal and very important. Okay, my opinion is not greater than your opinion because we're all trying to figure it out. We all don't know. It's better that we come into the state as children, that we kind of like equalize our understanding. What should we also do? Listen to each other. Listen to your friend. When he's talking, listen. Okay? Again, if I'm thinking while he's talking and I'm imagining something, I'm totally not listening, right? Because I'm in my head, not your head. I exit oneself into the other, okay? We speak briefly and then turn around the circle. Briefly, okay? I'm going to underline this one, all right? Briefly. Why? Give everybody a chance. We're creating something between us, right? Long dissertations, just, spread the time out. Just come to the point of what you want to say, and the next one, and the next one, and like this. And then we can build something beautiful between us, a collectivity, okay? When it's my turn, I add to what everyone is saying. As we get older in the study, you'll see how much this one's really important, that we add to each other because we're building an idea. You'll eventually become masters of this, actually, about how to add to a person without negating. Okay, it's a beautiful quality and a good trait, and it creates between us something very special, which is why we don't argue, but we focus on connection between us. Okay, all right. So how are we going to do this? You guys want to bring the chairs back around like we did it last time? So get your chairs, bring them over here. We're going to look in a circle. And by the way, you're not talking to me; you're talking to each other. Okay. All right. First question. How do we attain the spiritual reality? How do we attain the spiritual reality? Whoever wants to begin, begins, and we go in a circle, as you know, counterclockwise.
By running our nature from the will to receive to the will to bestow pleasure.
Like getting out of ourselves.
By being aware, not only from the outside but the inside, and also by acquiring some qualities of the creator.
I think by fighting egoism to find the colors to be like, get the qualities of the creator.
Not judging and not being opinionated and having an open mind and be willing to accept what is.
By climbing the ladder of 125 degrees to try to attain more light and higher vibration.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think the way that you do it is how you started with is becoming a bestower.
That's all equally right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yep, everybody said everything.
That's it for me. That was my comment.
Oh, so now we're supposed to comment on
If you
it?
have any more, you know.
So my understanding of it is
I hope so.
the biggest thing is really identifying, what some of the defects of character are, in myself, and being aware of them when they happen in day-to-day life, and really trying to correct them. But the one thing that I realize is that through my own thoughts, I can't correct them. That's only gonna drive me crazy because I'm gonna think that I can think them away when in reality only my creator can actually remove them.
Well, be more careful with the thought, because I may identify with those, and then I create an ego by identification of what I'm thinking. So it will be more, try to be more aware of this process.
I guess the only thing that I would add is it would be by trying to climb the ladder of spirituality to develop the spirit.
Next question. You've gone around, haven't you?
Yes, it's waiting for you to come back.
Sometimes our teacher leaves us for like ever. And you got to keep talking and going. It's very good. It's you'll see how much it really brings you together. What is the law of equivalence of form? How does it work?
I'll start. It's those circles on the board right there. It's basically that we think we're separate, but then as we realize we're more and more together and together until we become one. That's what I think.
Absolutely, and adding on to that, I guess in physical, the law of equivalence forms would be space, whereas in the spiritual, the law of equivalence of form would be like if we like the same things, if we have the same priorities, stuff like that.
For me, it's really in the group, especially like I'm sitting here right now, really having an open mind and identifying with one another in whatever ways we can, based on our experiences. And then when we do have those experiences and come to a higher level, we share that with the group, so that provides some sense of hope for everyone else that they can actually get through it on their own.
Yeah, I guess the fact that we are in a group will affect our residence days in a way that is constructive. Maybe we can being like the radio way, like you it's like attract life, If you know with the spirit of people, then it becomes part of them.
Yeah, I mean, what I understand is, trying to gain the qualities of something that you want to, that you're working towards. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how it works.
I just have an example, which is that when you meet somebody for the first time and you have that instant rapport or not, or the opposite, dislike for somebody that you don't even know. It's because we're so not close, because we're separated by this, the number one, okay? But when you start to get to know somebody, like in this group, because I certainly didn't know you or you or you or you, then we start to find out what you like and how you think, and it brings us closer together.
Pointing out the likeness of each other, how we're alike instead of how we're different. Constantly focusing on our likeness of each other.
Okay.
Keep going.
Well, I think what everyone's saying is working towards connected.
Absolutely, and as she said, the more we get to know each other and understand ourselves better, we start, just merging, just becoming more alike.
I agree with what you're saying. I think of it as really peeling back the onion of who I really am, and really dissecting that part of me, and then again sharing that experience with everyone else. And kind of along the lines of what I heard you say is, recognizing that my perceptions aren't always what they may seem, until I actually get someone, whatever it may be, an opportunity to reveal who they really are to me, then I'm not really giving them a fair chance, or myself.
But that perception can be increased, so you can maybe start with my own family. So I'm aware of my children and I have love for them. But then if I increase that perception to other families, then we start appreciating more the other families. I will do it as mine too. Like being the feel of love.
I think that since it's like a law, I feel like we're all, in a way, we're all kind of equivalent already, but it's about us trying to find out, asking those questions, like, you like this? Do you like that? Or you like that? Or like this? Like the answers are already there, but we just have to find out that little there. So.
I know it's my turn. God bless you. She's rushing me. No, I agree with what everybody's saying, and because it's true. Everything is the law of Romans.
I think readdressing the things that have separated us in the past and taking another look at it as we grow will help us to come together and connect better, because sometimes we have new insight and that lessens the difference between us. So continue searching.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I like what Jose said about it, the fact that it's a law. And so I'm going to hone in, it's a law of equivalence. So if it's a law, then we are already equivalent. We're just trying to find a way back and realize that we're equivalent.
And going back from what he said from the onion, I think that is like once we start peeling back that onions, like he said, we start realizing that a lot of that stuff is already there, and to a certain extent, it's like, you know, we're all the same person at the end of the day. So I guess it's just peeling away.
Let's go to the final reflection here. There is something else about preparation that I'm not going to do because of time, but I'll slip it into next class. Actually, I'll send it in with the homework. It's a video I'm going to send you about how to prepare for classes, like showing up early, reading, preparing your vessel for the light. I'll send that to you guys in part of the homework, so watch the clip and answer the question for yourself. But for now, let's do in one word or a sentence, describe what am I leaving the meeting with, or what am I taking with me? And you were next.
Oh,
Yeah, it's good.
You know, just because of my experience tonight and coming here taking a leap of faith, I'm leaving in one word
or a sentence, however you want. It's okay. Just open yourself up.
You know, just truly the importance of having an open mind, and my understanding is really just that I don't have any control over anything, people, places, or things. So really just letting go and letting God, and let God understand it. Just, I don't have any control. That's my thoughts.
Well, if I don't have that control, because I'm dreaming about it. And I'm feeling this ego that thinks of me as the false one. So I guess I have to lie myself to discover the other me, which is in everybody else.
I feel like I usually leave with besides good qualities or good just good feelings. I think I also leave with the sense of sort of this childlike sort of understanding of how reality is, or childlike perspective of reality, and sort of egoistic self. So it's I leave with a sense of really questioning all my prior thoughts about what I am and what everything really is. So.
And I think I'm leaving with a better understanding of some things that have happened in my past that this class has clarified for me.
I agree with that. I think I'm leaving with some insight about a situation, and I will take more patience in the future with everyone, especially myself.
I think I'm leaving with tiredness. But also just a feeling that I need to just kind of almost set this aside and let it have its own process until next week. If that makes sense.
I'm leaving with a sense of gratitude. Firstly for the class, of course, because I do think it's a privilege, you know, even having access to, you know, the wisdom, but also just for the group, because I mean, when we was doing this for a couple months, and it was like me and, you know, Jose, and, you know, it was very little of us, and now it's a big group, and we're doing the circle, and it's like the more people in the circle, and the more you see them learn, it's like every time they learn something about themselves, it's almost like you learn something about yourself. And then it's like, it's pretty amazing.
3 words come to mind, you know, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And along the lines of what you were saying, really, you know, self must die. You know, I've really got to kill all of my inner self. You know, I think of them as my character defects. All the things that have been created in me over my experiences in life. And I really just kind of got to come out of my own box to gain a better understanding of others and myself. That's really what I judge by. You know, I've got a long list of defects that I'm sure I can identify more.
We all have freckles.
Let's not keep everyone here too long. We've already gone past. No, it's perfect. Believe
Just,
me.
Chris, I want to say one thing.
Yeah, go,
Alfredo
sure.
made a really good point about leaving with gratitude, and I think that got forgotten on my part. But yes, that it's a wonderful.
So this is exactly what this clip is about this feeling. What should we leave with? What is this wisdom all about? So let's see what our teacher says here.
Maybe a surprising question. Nestor from Argentina is asking. In short, what's our role in life? To have fun. Really, to have fun? The author wants for us to have fun. He wants for us to have good, really good. Not for us to play with some little toys, and by doing so we'll move life. You have life, and within that life you have to produce eternity. And that's our role in life. To reach the absolute good, and not a good that seems to you. For that, he would liberate. He wants to bring you to the true good. As much as you are trying to locate that concept and to get closer to it, that's your role in life.
He called the upper.
And we attain this only in the connection between us, which is the place where we receive that good.
He called him the upper.
The upper, yeah. There's the upper ones, we're the lower ones. Okay, friends. So here's the homework for next week. It's not homework; it's preparation stuff. I'm gonna send it out tonight to make sure that you get it. Now that we've cleaned up the email addresses, there's watching some clips. There's reading from the book. I'm gonna send in the history of the Kabbalists is already a clip that you guys we watched last week. So I'm gonna not include it, and I'm gonna add the one about preparation. Okay, with a question that you should ask yourself: what's the best way I can prepare for the next class? Okay, and that's it, friends. This is how the wisdom of Kabbalah is laid before us. It's we have to, you know, we're having that fun. So let's enjoy it. All right.
It was a pleasure meeting everyone.
Hey, man, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Yes, pleasure having you too. And I'll see you
Good to
next
see you.
time.
Alfredo.
Our pleasure.
So we probably find out like next week or the one after.
Oh boy, about the dates.
Yeah.
Question, guys: is anyone leaving town at the end of the year, or is everyone in town?
In town.
Email is the most important one. You got an email?
I
But
guys
you've been
should
doing
know.
this for 2 months. You should be ahead of us.
Nah, I wish. You sure nobody wants to take a little trip, a little extended vacation for the holidays, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if you should I decided.
I would, but
I guess not.
Great idea.
it's not a matter of wanting, it's a matter of able.
Okay, so everyone's going to be in town. The thing is, you know, our friend Alfredo, who's going to be leaving for 2 classes at the end, the 27th and January 3rd. Those are good days. For you know, they're not necessarily don't fall on the holidays themselves. Some of you, I don't know what you observe, but what do? Do we postpone for 2 weeks, or do we continue and we record?
We record and we follow
The recording.
instructions on the recorder and not like an online instruction.
Okay, so all of you come to class on the 27th of December?
Yeah, like
Yes.
myself,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm gonna be on the 27 on the 3 because
Okay.
I'm leaving the country.
So you are leaving?
But
Okay.
it's not sure.
Okay, that's fine. So as
There's
long
a
as
good
we
chance he's gonna
record.
leave.
Huh?
There's a good chance he's gonna leave.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Okay, so Alfredo's hoping that enough of you will leave that we'll agree to postpone the
Are you
class.
paying to take us somewhere else, right?
I'm gonna
He's
be-
inviting you to Cuba with
You guys can come with me.
So look, if things change, you know, we're gonna do our best to accommodate, but we must go forward. So we're gonna record the classes, and I'll make sure that you get them. You'll see tonight's recordings can go a lot smoother. It's gonna spit it out quicker. I'll upload it quicker. You guys will get it, and you'll be able to review it with all the assignments. And so it's still recording, so I should stop it. But that's it. So we'll try, okay? But you're a good student, so you won't depart. I know you'll watch the classes. You'll read the stuff. So. I'm not worried about
So we're not meeting? Oh,
We are meeting, for sure we're meeting.
Okay.
We don't stop.
We still got some
find the place.
You're hoping people will find
All right, I'm hoping that the holiday spirit is gonna come. You said what?
All right. Good night, all. Thank you.
Thanks. Drive safe and take care.
All right, let's take one to school.
You know,
Well, November,
we'll have to figure something out. Jose?
Take care.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Drive careful.
Juan,
And yeah, and make sure all of you registered and paid, okay?
I'm already paid up.
Yeah, you're good. I don't know. Raphael knows about this. I don't know.
All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
November.
Oh, I saved it in. It's in my purse. I saved it in.
All right. Good night. Thank you, man. It's all good, man. I'll see you next week, okay? Yeah, be safe.
Bye, ladies.
Bye-bye. Good seeing you.
That bag's like on its last leg.
Well, I just used it, but she wanted me to put it in a
It's
bag.
easier for me
I
to
will
carry
buy,
everywhere.
I'll buy something better, you know, for next time.
Is that one going in?
Realize-
It seems like halfway up.
Oh, yeah.
I have better ones.
Thank you for your help. All help greatly
Yeah, be careful.
appreciated.
Hey, watch out with
Is
that
there
guy.
a garbage can?
I'll take care of it. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
This pen's also dead too, right?
The pen is dead.
Yeah, it looks
That's why I
dead.
threw it in there.
All right, good.
I'm working, there's no point putting it back in the cup.
You go
That's for
first, so
So look, maybe some carpool next time or something with this.
that's what I told her. I told her I would share my notes with her so she won't miss anything.
Well, you can share the recording with her too. That I'll give you. Actually, let me stop it now because it's still going.
Hey, I'm on TV.
All right, stop recording.